I started skiing when I came from California in 1915 in Binghamton, New York. And I was introduced to skiing by my pals in the school I went to because they had skis. So I bought a pair of skis for $1.98, and I skied in my grandmother's backyard on the Leroy Street in Binghamton, New York. Back in the 1929, there was a stock market crash, and the government wanted to do something relating to that and offer jobs to people. So they came out with the CCC and offered them jobs if they would help build hiking trails on the various mountains around here in the east. And that developed into quite a project. And they built these hiking trails on the various mountains. Later, the people found out that these were open spaces where they could ski. They didn't have to hike there. So they'd climb up and they'd ski down these trails. Well, what developed into that all these places that had these hiking trails is now developed into ski areas. That's how skiing got started around the east here.
I brought up in Hunter, and I started skiing in 1925. That's a long time, 39 years, and I believe that I probably have skied the most number of days of any man in America.
First time I skied was back in the early 30s when we were still living on a farm.
You had a pair of skis, they were short. Mine were from Montgomery Ward. I bought them in 1924. They were about 6 feet long or 6.5 feet long, no edges. There's a pine board and no bindings. And you could only go down the hill, you couldn't turn on them, you couldn't do any of the... And then I first made a turn in 1942. We had a German up here, German doctor who was here, and he took my wife and I. At that time, she was my wife-to-be. It was just before the war, before we went to war, and he started skiing. He showed us how to make these turns. And then from then on, we went into turns. And they got bindings that you could control it, and they had the little metal edges that were screwed on. And then they finally made the good edges around the late 50s, and developed a ski that you have today.
Well, and back in 1954, a group of people wanted to get together and see what they could do to resurrect the old hotels, the camps and lodges, because Hunter, of all the industries that were in Hunter, tourism is the only one that has survived over the past 100 years or more. Some of the largest hotels in the world were here. The Catskill Mountain House and the Catskill Mountain Lodge and the Laurel House. The Catskill House had 900 rooms or more. It was all wooden structures, but they've gone by the wayside, and there were probably thousands of hotels and boarding houses around here, up and down the valley once you came up the mountain, you got back down into the Lexington, Prattsville, Wyndham area, East Wyndham, and Maple Crest. They weren't kept up with the modern times, and they didn't meet the criteria of the day, so little by little they just disappeared. When they told me that they wanted to resurrect the old hotels, and I listened to them for a while, and after I listened to them for a few minutes, I said, I think, gentlemen, you're beating a dead horse. Let's try something new. And they said, what's that? I said, skiing. Skiing is just coming into its own, and I think this is the time to get in on the ground floor. They thought it was a little bit radical for what they'd called a meeting for, and they said, well, we'll think it over. A few weeks later, they came back to me and said, well, we'll take you up on your idea. I said, okay, now let's get the wheels of progress moving. While they were trying to raise capital, we went in, did a lot of the work. Eventually, we did the bulk of the work.
We were probably the logical people to run a ski area. Actually, the general contractor is the one to do it. He does that kind of work. We did road work, bridges and all that. We had the equipment to do all this material. We understood what it was to do it like in Hunter. If we weren't general contractor, we probably couldn't have built some of these trails. We moved 400,000 yards of rock to build one trail, probably the most expensively built trail in the world. And just on account of that, and also we were brought up on a farm, and the farmer and the contractor is a logical person to run the ski. They understand the snow, understand the weather, and that's very, very important.
Well, the first, before we got involved with anybody that would develop an area, I had set forth two stipulations. One, that the area had to be called Hunter Mountain, and second, that it had to have snowmaking. And snowmaking wasn't even in its infancy at this time. It was something I'd heard about, and growing up on the farm, I was well aware that many a year we'd use a sleigh all winter long. Other winters you'd never hook a sleigh up and you used a wagon. And other winters you'd go from sleigh to wagon, back to sleigh, back to wagon, all throughout the season. So I felt that in order to overcome the problems, that the best thing would be to have snowmaking so that it would ensure a longer season.
Well, I skied here at Hunter when it first opened, and Hammerstein's son opened it up and developed it. Then there were complaints sent into the state of New York about the operation. Hammerstein didn't develop the areas the way he expected it to be, and he owed the Slutzkys, the owners of Hunter Mountain here, for the work that they did in building the trails and all that stuff there. And so they took over the mountain, and Hammerstein had to give up. And that's how the Slutzkys got involved into Hunter Mountain here, you know.
I first got involved skiing when I was 11 years old. I was shown or told by my father that there was going to be a ski area in Hunter, and it was going to be something new, and we went out and got skis and boots, and my brothers and I, we all started skiing. I was 11 at the time. By today's standards, it's kind of getting in late, because I know my son started when he was 1 year old.
I don't ski anymore. I haven't skied in the past 4 years.
Yes, I go out early in the morning, yeah, see what the conditions are. You can't tell how the snow crinkles under the ski unless you're on skis.
I've been all over the world, and I've seen tremendous mountains in the Andes up over 20,000 feet, in Russia up over 18,000 feet, in China, and there's still something special about the Catskills. I mean, they're not the biggest mountains, and we can't have bragging rights on that, but they're special and they're unique. And I think if they're developed right, they'll hold their prominence in the world as a special place to come to.